All right, what's going on, everybody? It is Pushing the Limits on a Friday. Thank you so much for joining us. Big show lined up for you today. You could be watching, listening on the Occupy Democrats Network, the Washington Press Network, of course. My personal YouTube page, which is at PTL Radio Show. We're on X. We're on all forms of social media. My YouTube page, as I mentioned, and, of course, pushingthelimits.live. Thank you so much for joining us. So, we have a lot to get to today and a lot to go over. I'm not sure Matt Gaetz will ever be a politician again. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. You know, I listen to all of you. Well, most of you. Listeners and fans of the show. And sometimes people give me opinions on who I should have on the show. I've had people call into this show requesting that this gentleman coming up here next should be a guest. Preface it by saying, you know, there are a lot of MAGA Trump supporters that still believe that the 2020 election was stolen. My response to that has always been there's no evidence of widespread voter fraud that could have been proven. So that's why I don't really comment on it anymore, because I don't think there's any reason to. However, the 2024 election is still fresh in all of our minds. It happened a few weeks ago. And the guy joining us on the show right now, he is a security decades attack. I shouldn't say maybe going after might be too strong of a word, but catching hackers. He's made a living in doing so. And he is a registered Republican who does not consider himself anti-Donald Trump. And he is claiming that hackers got into our systems in the 2024 elections. His name is Stephen Spoonamore, and he joins us right now on the show. Stephen, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, appreciate you being here. We've had a lot of people that wanted to have you come on the show. I'm happy to have you here. Before we get into why you believe the 2024 election was hacked, can you give people a little bit more background on your history and what you've been doing over the course of the last 3 decades as a security expert?
Well, I'm a network engineer, and mostly I build things at home and blink. So I've had a number of companies, and everybody probably on this program has had systems that I've had help protect them. So among the things I've been involved with are building train rider detection systems that look for stowaways on trains, vibration detectors that look for anomalies in bridges, and numerous different credit card systems that look for generally erroneous or misbehaving machines within a system of settlement, but also fairly often detect fraud or deliberate efforts to do so. So building these sorts of systems is what I've done. Mm-hmm. There have been times in the past where I have come out and very publicly pushed back on electronic voting, especially just after HAVA, the Help America Vote Act, and explained how all those touchscreen machines were incredibly vulnerable, how they could be hacked. I demonstrated how they could be hacked. I appeared on Lou Dobbs' show, on numerous television shows about it. And then in 2002 and in 2004, I was very actively involved in uncovering several hacks, went to court about it, ended up in some extensive litigation, gave professional testimony, and to a great extent helped push forward the narrative that you have to have paper ballots. And most people now have them. But the question is how they're then used. Are you counting the paper ballots yourself and confirming they're there, or are they going into tabulators, which are, again, back into a computer? A tabulator is great to speed up the counting process, but it can be manipulated, and it can put out false results or just make mistakes. It happens. So, and to clarify, the 2008, 2012, 2016, 2020 elections, I didn't see any electronic problems at the presidential level. And I said so. And I was asked by people about it. I said, no, I think Trump won in 2016, and I think he lost in 2020. And I think Barack Obama won both his races. But in 2024, I have really serious concerns.
Okay,
and
let's talk about that. Let's talk about your concerns. You have been public about this, as I said to start this interview, that you believe that the 2024 elections were hacked. I don't know if you've ever used the term stolen or rigged, but you have said that you believe they were hacked. So give us
Correct.
the rundown. Why would you make a claim like that? Tell us what you
So,
have.
okay, so let's start with smoke. When you do what I do, so I'm going to go ahead and point to something that everyone on the show is probably aware of. Because sometimes when I start explaining that several hundred machines have been affected, people go, oh, that's ridiculous how that could occur. 8 weeks ago, every person on the planet watched as 3,000 communication devices, a combination of pagers, radios, cellular relays, in-house relays, all in a timed manner exploded and killed numerous people at the top of Hezbollah. That is much larger in scale than what I am claiming happened. So whoever successfully did that intercepted thousands of products, inserted into them thousands of pieces of hardware and software so they'd still function correctly. You wouldn't know there was anything wrong until they decided to set a trigger off that caused the death and dismemberment and harm to hundreds and hundreds of people. I myself, as a white hat, on behalf of my customers, have built hundreds of duplicate credit card machines that do what they're supposed to do. We put them into a retailer. They work like a credit card machine. They take your credit card. They settle it. But underneath all that, there's a separate set of circuits that have been added that are basically creating false data that we're hoping the thieves steal because we're tracing that false data with separate sets of computers to catch them. And we've done this on the scale of hundreds of units at a time. So with that in context, those are factual things people have seen and things that I've personally been involved with. What I think has happened is this. I believe someone on behalf of Donald Trump has entered the software of the tabulation machines and the e-poll books and manipulated them. I don't know who won the election. And that's what people keep saying, was the election stolen? I said, I don't know, but I do not believe the results.
Okay, but why do you believe that? What you just stated right now, that you believe that somebody...
So here's the smoke.
Okay.
Here's the smoke. In this election, it's going to come down in the end to Donald Trump having about 49% of the vote and Kamala having 48% of the vote.
Mm-hmm.
So yet he won all 7 states that are swing states, all outside the margin of error. Statistically, you're way out past 1 in a million probability of that. Ask statisticians. I'm not one, but they'll all back me up. If you go and look at every win, including Barack Obama's, which was the largest, an over 7.5% win, he only won 6 of the 7 swing states. And one of them was
there. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think you just made a very interesting point that I really, and it kind of makes some sense to me. It's almost a 50-50 election. Donald Trump won the popular vote, as you mentioned, maybe between 1% and 2%, give or take.
Right.
And yet, as you just mentioned, he wins all the battleground states.
Correct.
Is that just a coincidence?
All of them outside the margin of error that would actually force a hand recount, which would reveal what I'm talking about. So the second aspect of this, so then I said, okay, well, that was the first night I looked at that and I said, that makes zero statistical sense. I called a couple of colleagues of mine. And they said, that is crazy numbers. How could that happen? So I started looking harder at it. And I said, well, there's also a very second strange mathematical anomaly here. And that is the number of either overvotes or votes that appear to be for Donald Trump that don't appear in any other Republican ticket, that don't appear in any other Democratic ticket. Now, I don't want people to get wrapped around this axle. There's 2 ways that can occur. It can either occur purely as an electronic addition, or it can appear as someone actually inserted bullet ballots. And when I put this in my duty to warn letter to Kamala Harris, I said, one of these things, there are a lot of people who said, oh, how can you prove there's bullet ballots? You haven't even looked at the ballots. I don't know. But I'm saying this math only adds up if one of these 2 things occurs. And then the last piece of smoke. So I said, okay, I now know that in Nevada, where your show is based, there is an almost 5.5% apparent numerical portion of Trump's voters that voted for him and nothing else. If you break the numbers down, that's what it looks like it appears. Arizona's around 3%. So as you start looking at these, that pushes the window of the vote into the no recount zone. Well, let's look at your neighboring state. Let's look at Utah. Let's look at Idaho. Let's look at Oregon. In all of those states, that same numerical differentiation is less than 0.5%, which is what's normal in an election. There are people that go and just want to vote in one race and they do it. But that is very, very rarely above 0.5%. Like in Utah, right next door to you guys, I assume there's equally fanatical Trump voters in Utah and in Nevada. You guys have 5%. They have 0.1%. And yet, are you really that different that there's a 2 to 3x order of magnitude difference in this voting behavior as soon as you cross the state line?
Right.
No, I do not believe it. So what I've called for in my duty to warn letter is two things. One, well, and let me give you the third piece of smoke. Every single person involved on that side, Elon Musk said, if we fail, I go to jail. Donald Trump says, if I fail, I go to jail. Vladimir Putin says, I helped you steal the election, pay up. It's like all of the people involved on the other side are arguing with each other about A, who would go to jail if they fail, and B, who's what for helping steal the election. I'm sorry, when a criminal gang with people who are international war criminals and convicted felons start saying, I did something and now we got to settle our scores, I'm like, okay, I believe you.
Did Vladimir Putin say that? Is he on the record as saying
his Peskov, who's his head of intelligence.
Right.
And there you can find the link. It's pretty funny. He's basically saying techniques were used to put you in office. You now owe us. Make sure you follow up your obligations and make sure you're paid.
So I hear what you're saying. By the way, if you're just joining us, he is Stephen Spoonamore, claiming that the 2024 elections were hacked. Okay, so Stephen, my next question would be this. You're making some valid points, and I think it's very fair to ask these questions, okay? And you're making a lot of sense. But from an outsider looking in like myself, and clearly I don't have the experience that you have, but from an outsider looking in, I say to myself, okay, what you're saying makes sense, but there still has to be actual, real evidence to present in the court of law, right?
Correct. So I have a testable theory, right? It's like, and I'll flag this. If I went to any of my customers, like all of the big credit card companies have hired me, every one of them, most of them a lot of times. If I went to any one of them and said, I have found a 5% anomaly in your data, I want to start an investigation, the big red siren lights will go on at the executive suite. Money gets approved the next 30 seconds and investigations start immediately.
In business, so, sure. Yeah.
I'm saying the same thing, and I'm saying this is testable. I never know for sure where a hack is. We find this by finding anomalies in a mathematical, stable system of a network. And that's what we're seeing here. The test is simple, and it's two addressable steps. The one, you actually take the paper ballots and you must hand count them. If the tabulator is compromised, running them through a compromised tabulator may or may not produce the same result a second time, depending on what the compromise internal to it is. But hand counting them would go, holy smoke, all of a sudden you'd say, this number doesn't match what the tabulator said before. And I've been working with some voter advocacy groups, and we have a list of precincts we want. And the challenge is there's been no engagement from the Harris people. You have to be.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think there's no engagement from them?
I think that the well has been so poisoned by the Stop the Steal people, and frankly, most of the Democrats are just too nice to admit that thieves have stolen the election from them. Yeah. I'm sorry. Well, that's what it seems to me.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Some more questions in regards. We were led to believe that 25 million people registered to vote in this election.
Yes, new people.
So let's talk about this. And this is a question that I asked the day after the election. I said, okay, are we led to believe that Kamala Harris got 20 million less votes this time around than Joe Biden? Well, and we can talk about Trump, where he was very close to the amount of votes that he got in 2020 as well. That didn't make a lot of sense to me. I wanted to ask you about that.
Something? Pull the ballots out and count them by hand. That is a separate. What you're pointing to is a separate issue, and I'm not dismissing it. There's also people there's other investigators are pointing out that there are thousands and thousands of ballots that have been challenged this time from new voters, mostly young women, like here in Pennsylvania, it's over 18,000 ballots were left in their envelopes. They're all submitted by young women. They're claiming the signatures don't match and they won't let them be counted. Well, is it really voter fraud? Are you really excluding people because you think it's a fraudulent ballot, or you're excluding them because you don't want their politics included? And I've said this over and over again. I'm a moderate Republican, I admit, but I want to live in a democracy, and I want the ballots to count, and I want my candidates to win. And if they don't, they don't. And then you have another election.
What I'm hearing from you, based on what you've told me so far, is these 5% anomalies, which are strange. I'll give you that. You're
huge.
Also right, and you're also explaining to me other weird things, like, for example, and we'll go back to this, is like, Trump barely won the popular vote. It was very, very close, which surprised me, by the way. But in this close of an election, which it wasn't a mandate. I've been saying that to Republicans. This is not a mandate. It was very close. Half the country still didn't vote for Trump or don't like Trump. And with that being said, if it's that close of an election, how can is Trump just really lucky? How is it possible that he wins literally every single battleground state?
I don't believe it's true.
Yeah.
But I've said I don't believe it's true. And looking at the data, so if I want to look at, and this is speculation on my part, but informed speculation as someone who looks at data anomalies all the time. When I look at the data and I pull out these weird undervote totals of whatever they are, whether they're electronic anomalies or if they're bullet ballots, if I pull them out, it looks to me like Trump won Arizona barely. Looks like he won Georgia barely. Looks like he won Florida by a lot. It looks like he lost Nevada. It looks like he lost Wisconsin. It looks like he lost Michigan. And Pennsylvania looks like it's a dead frickin' tie. So if that's actually what the result is, great. That's actually the result. In which case, it really does come down to who really won Pennsylvania with the real numbers. And Dave McCormick just went through this long battle with Casey. And Casey's now conceded, but even Casey said, look, I lost by 15,000 votes. That's it out of, millions. Mm-hmm. And he says, but there's 18,000 votes sitting there in envelopes that they won't let us open because they've questioned them. And I'm like, that's a different issue. That issue of whether you're suppressing the vote because you disagree with people versus real fraud, different issue. But I'm pointing to a fundamental question that the systems that counted the votes are not producing a believable result. They're just not.
So you're alleging that you believe that somebody within Donald Trump's orbit hacked into these machines. So my question to you is,
well, somebody who wants him to benefit. Now, whether or not he didn't even have to participate in it, but someone who wants him to be president did it.
How would somebody go about doing that? And how could you find proof that somebody did that?
Okay, so there's two different core ways, and then a third way that's been suggested by another researcher. The two core ways, and if you've read my duty to warn letter, is that one, you would have to introduce bullet ballots. Now, strangely, there was an international bomb threat at 67 tabulation sites. Now that meant those tabulation sites were evacuated and not necessarily in the same order. And could you introduce a lot of ballots with just Donald Trump's name checked? Yes, you could, if you also knew what precinct to introduce them to. And that involves a lot of Confederates, which I'll get to this bounty we're now offering, a group of people approached me about. So you would have to do one other thing in advance. You'd have to mark that people voted in the e-poll book so that it matched the number of voters to the number of ballots. And here's the trick. When Elon Musk came forward and said, I have this wonderful idea. You need to sign up for a lottery to support Donald Trump. I looked at it and said, that's an interesting approach to marketing a candidate.
I think it's illegal, actually.
Well, I'm going to set aside whether it's legal. I signed up. I said, I'm going to see what this is. I like stuff like this. I'm going to go look. And because I smelled a rat. And you know what information they wanted in this modern age? Your street address. They didn't want your socials. They didn't want your email. They didn't want your phone. They didn't want to text you. They wanted your street address. Why? Because that's how poll books are organized. They wanted to build their own e-poll book of people that were willing to sign up for $1 million, and they claimed they got millions of names. Okay, so now I'm Donald Trump on election night. I'm doing my thing. Elon Musk, meanwhile, who Joe Rogan and other people said had his own app. He's watching the real data be exchanged. He has his own copy of an e-poll book broken down by precinct by his data engineers, and they know who they are out there, data engineers. Someone took that lottery information and broke it down by precinct. 100% guarantee that. They now have this. End of the day is coming along. They're looking at their totals in each state. They're going, we need another 20,000 votes in Pennsylvania to be outside of recount range. Great. They can electronically in seconds, if they're in the poll book, mark 20,000 voters. They now know the precinct. Now they have to have Confederates that can either A, introduce actual ballots into those precincts, or B, the tabulators have to be compromised, and they have to tell the tabulator what the new total is going to have to be. And
so the allegation there is that Elon Musk had information that almost nobody else could have had in regards to if it's close in a certain battleground state, he could, and again, could compromise a certain district in a battleground state, knowing a certain number of votes that Donald Trump might need, so there wouldn't have to be a recount. So that's
if you've built your own e-poll book database of people who are pledged your supporter, and you've looked at the real poll book database, said, okay, here's 75 people in each precinct. And a computer can do this automatically. It can know how many people have voted in the precinct, and he's got to sign up of these are the people who promised they would, these are the people who have, and these people are missing. He now knows the delta of his missing people. He could mark them voted. And then
I hear you. Everything you're saying certainly makes sense to me.
And I'm not saying I know this has happened. This is how you could do it. And I've said in my letter how you can prove it. You can prove this.
You can prove it, but here's the uphill battle. It's going to cost a lot of money.
Yep.
Does the Harris campaign want to go down this rabbit hole?
Apparently not.
She already conceded. Number 3. And again, it goes back to what I said earlier. You have to, even though what you're saying makes sense, you have to have some real hard evidence. And it sounds like to me what you're saying is you believe this very well could have happened. Let's check the machines. Let's count every ballot.
Correct.
The problem, right. But the problem with that is, with respect to you, the problem with that is that I don't think anybody's willing to go that far unless we already have some really hard evidence. And I'm not trying to discount anything that you've said, because I think you're making a lot of sense, to be clear. But the problem is, in order for that to happen and put the country through something like that, there would really have, maybe it's a private conversation that Elon Musk had with somebody talking about doing exactly what you claim he could have done. Maybe it's a private conversation that Vladimir Putin had with Donald Trump. Something like that comes forward. If there was evidence like that, then I think, okay, time to have the recount. But you see where I'm going with that? And I'm not trying to discount anything you've said. All I'm saying is,
no, you're right.
Realistically, yeah.
I get it. And so I've laid out, it's sort of like there's people out there in the world that are professionals at spotting forged paintings.
Yeah.
And they look at them and some people say, well, how do you know? And it's like, I've done so many of these. I look at it and you know what suspect. This is what I do for a living. When I see a data anomaly set in a large network, this one stinks. Something's wrong. Mm-hmm. And I've asserted, here's how you test it. Now, one of the things that I could add to this, a group of people approached me. They put together $100,000 and they said, if we put this $100,000 out as a bounty, will you review tips to see if your theories are correct? I said, absolutely. So they went live with this. It's ballotbounty.com. They've got a $100,000 reward. Myself and a team of about 6 or 7 others, now we may have as many as 20 soon, are going to review the tips as they come in. Because people out there know, in either case, in the case where you've compromised the electronics of the voting machines, which there's now these crazy pictures emerging of all these people wearing T-shirts with the password, the firmware password that goes into the voting machine in the voting place. It's like, where did this come from? I didn't know any of this before the election, but I've been sent 50 of these pictures now, and they're all inside. Some of them are standing next to the tabulator wearing a shirt with the firmware password that changes the code. And I'm like,
right.
Where's the FBI on this? And I'm like, okay. People are sending me this stuff, and I'm like,
we could also talk about the bomb threats that took place that day. That certainly had some effect on things. We can talk about Donald Trump that day, who was claiming that there was cheating going on in Philadelphia, when we know that was also not true. That's voter intimidation. We could go back to talking about Elon Musk. He's not paying people to sign a petition. Let's be honest. He was paying people so that they could sign up and vote for Donald Trump. We all know that. And when Elon Musk got involved, I think he had some dirty hands on some things. But again, go back to what I said earlier. We have to have there. We have to have something. And, we're running out of time. So that's that. I think that's the issues that we have here. And I think it's a real big uphill battle. But if people want to learn more about you, and people want to, as you mentioned, there's the website where people could give you tips, and you're offering a $100,000 bounty. Can you give out that information again, how people can contact you directly and how people can go to that website if they have some tips to share?
I'm on all social. I'm on virtually every social network, just at Spoonamore. That's me. Okay. I've been on Twitter, and I'm now on Blue Sky. I wasn't before. I'm on Blue Sky as well. I have my own Substack. I'm on Spoutable. I like Spoutable, by the way. I admire Chris Boozy and trust him. So all the social networks, I like it. It's not as popular as the others, but I actually trust the owner more.
Gotcha. Yep.
So yeah, you want to contact me? DM me on any of those platforms, whichever one you prefer. I don't care. If you are one of the people, though, and I know you people are out there who took Elon Musk's giant lottery data and then built it into precinct level data, you know who you are. There's a couple of data engineers out there going, oh, crap, man. And I bet they didn't know why they were doing it. They were assigned to do this, and they're like, okay, great. He's got this crazy lottery. They want to know what precinct people in. And now they're like, oh, man, was I involved in an international crime? Yes, you were. And guess what? Whoever comes forward first gets the best deal from law enforcement. And if you didn't know you were involved in a crime and didn't, you won't be prosecuted. You'll be a witness, but you won't be prosecuted. And you can make $100,000.
I got to be honest with you. I didn't know about any of this stuff about the personal app that Elon Musk had. There had to be a reason why he was giving this money away. There had to be reasoning for it besides just wanting Donald Trump to win. I believe what he did was illegal, and that makes sense to me, but we'll have to let the listeners decide on that one. Yes. I'll say this, Stephen, if you get any big information, any big tips, as you called them, I would love for you to come back on the show and share it with us. And I do appreciate the conversation. We'll let the listeners decide. And I appreciate you coming on, and let's do it again down the road. If you get any new information, you have my cell phone number, you have my email. Please reach out to me, and I'll gladly have you back on the show.
Thank you. It was a great show. You do great work. Please keep it up. And thank you, listeners, for hearing about mathematical anomalies. It's probably not the most interesting thing for a late Friday.
Well, let me tell you something. When it comes to an election, it's certainly interesting to me and a lot of our listeners. So, Stephen, I appreciate you making your case, my friend. We'll talk soon, and thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Stephen. All right, that's Stephen Spoonamore. You guys wanted him on. I wanted him on. Interesting guy, smart guy. He's got a lot of experience. He said some very interesting things, some things that I hadn't heard of before in regards to Elon Musk, in regards to some really weird anomalies in the election. He makes a very valid point here. Donald Trump on the popular vote by 1%. Are we led to believe that he just swept the board and won every battleground state? That's also very weird. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break first, and then we're going to take some callers on the other side. I want to hear from you, whether you agree or disagree with them, whether you're a MAGA supporter or a Harris supporter. I don't care. Keep in mind, this guy's a registered Republican, and he does not call himself anti-Trump. He's not anti-Trump. I had a private conversation with him earlier today. So this is some interesting information that we've had. And I want to get your calls on the other side, and I want to hear from all of you. Gave you guys what you wanted. You wanted me to get this guy on the show. I produced that. Now I want you guys to chime in. 702-221-7283. Take a quick break. Your call's next. It's Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premium Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Have you ever dreamed of having your own radio show or a podcast, but just didn't think it was possible? Well, dreams can come true. Radio U. Radio U is a 5-day course that'll teach you how to acquire your dream show. We'll teach you how to host, how to write commercial, how to interview, how to market, how to write a contract, and most importantly, how to monetize your dream radio show. You'll learn from some of the best in the business with over 75 years in broadcast experience. You'll learn from people like me. And the best part? Every single student will be live on the radio as part of the class. Plus, one student from each class will get their very own radio show. You'll be live on the air right here in Las Vegas. Radio U. The 5-day course is being offered at $699. For more information, give Radio U a call. 702-763-5024. That's 702-763-5024. Or check them out at radioyou101.com.
All right, welcome back. Pushing the Limits. I want to remind all of you the official gaming bar of the Pushing the Limits radio show is Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. I might head over there after the show today, grab some lunch. At Jackson's, they have the Pass the Puck contest. You can win up to $500 in free slot play just for playing a machine while watching the Vegas Golden Knights game. Free wine Mondays and Wednesdays this month if you earn 300 base points playing a machine. Check them out. Great food, great atmosphere, man. Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. Also, check out my website, pushingthelimits.live. We are an independently owned radio show. If you enjoy what we do here, we ask that you go on my website, pushingthelimits.live. We sell merchandise, beanies, hats, shirts, you name it. We sell it on there. If you don't want to buy merchandise, you could also donate. Right on the front page, there's this little donate button. $5, $10, $20 a month. We appreciate whatever you guys can afford, and we appreciate all of you, if you haven't already, for donating to the show and buying merchandise. It keeps us doing what we're doing here, so we appreciate you very much. All right, well, we just had Stephen Spoonamore on the show. I've had a lot of people that have wanted him to join me on the show here in the last few weeks, and I delivered. I give the audience what they wanted. Agree or disagree with him. Again, my quick opinions on it, and then we'll get right to the calls. Smart guy. I don't think he's biased. Doesn't sound like an anti-Trumper. I had a private conversation with him. He told me he's a registered Republican. Doesn't think any other election was stolen per se. He gave me reasons why he believes that this election, he didn't even use the term stolen, but hacked into. Anomalies, mathematical anomalies, 5% anomalies from people that are just going in there and allegedly just voting for Donald Trump and nobody else. He also talked about how could this election be so close, 49% to 48% popular vote, but yet Donald Trump swept the board with the swing states. That's also interesting. And then he talked about something really interesting to me, which was apparently this app that Elon Musk had, and it gave him data in regards to certain precincts, and it's part of the reason why he did this $1 million, pay people $1 million in this lottery so that he could have information on these precincts of people, and then use that to his advantage if he needed to. I don't know. I'm just asking the questions, and I'm just going by the stuff that he said that I found to be quite interesting. 702-221-7283. Let's start off with Don. Don is first up on PTL. What's going on, Don?
Brian, I caught your show about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm a lifetime conservative, but I've got a cousin, and he's a Republican governor here in Indiana, which I haven't really spoken to for about 4 or 5 years. And I'm going to tell you something. They hate Trump, but the only problem is they don't want their lives to be threatened.
Mm-hmm.
And these people are scared. They're scared of Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And I can guarantee that a lot of these Republicans that support Trump, that are, like senators and congressmen, they hate Trump. And I know for a fact from when I, was in meetings before, and I've got a grandson that works for 2 Republican senators in Indianapolis, and they talk the same way.
So I agree with you. I think there's a lot of Republicans out there that are afraid of Donald Trump, including those that are in office in Washington, D.C. as we speak. But with that being said, are you willing to go the distance, and do you believe this guy, Stephen Spoonamore, when he says he believes the elections were hacked? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay. I've been a registered voter all my life until 2016, Republican. I never voted in 2016, 2020. I voted for Biden the first time. This time, I voted straight Democrat ticket. I didn't care if the guy was a janitor. But anyway,
Gotcha.
Going back to that, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but can I tell you something?
Yeah.
Trump had everything to lose. First of all,
Yes,
if
that's
he
true.
lost the election, he could lose his empire.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that,
You're right.
he probably knew he was going to go to prison.
You're right.
And
I
the
don't
second
disagree.
Thing,
Yep.
yeah, and the second thing is that Musk, he's got all these investigations going on.
Right.
And the thing is, he had a lot to lose. And
Correct.
the third thing, why would somebody want just your street address and not your name and everything else?
Very
Now,
good
that's,
question.
To me,
Very
that's
good. Yeah.
fishy.
So I agree. Those are very valid points that you bring up. And I agree. That is very fishy, as you put it. The problem is you need to have some stuff in place more than just, boy, that's strange, that's odd, that's an anomaly, that's fishy, in order to bring it to a court, present it to a judge, and to have a recount. That's the problem that we face here, right? But I agree with everything you just said. Very odd, very strange. You'd want somebody's address, but you don't want their name. You don't want their social security number. 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you would like to be a part of the conversation. All right, let's see here. Who do we have next on the show? I think next we are going to go to Trey. Trey is next up on PTL. Hey, Trey, what's going on?
Hey, Brian. Just wanted to real quick just piggyback on this. I think that some of this getting the information also has to do with the mass text messages that went out to people with the racist comments. You know, I think that there's something may, be attached there. But again, you're right. Kind of like how it feels does not matter. Like we have to get some sort of, definitive evidence.
What we
rolling.
can't do,
But,
Trey, what we can't do, and I'm not saying you're doing this, and I'm not even saying Steven's doing this. What we can't do is say the election was stolen, the election was rigged without sufficient evidence. I'm not saying that what Steven said didn't make a lot of sense, because I think a lot of what he said did. He sounds like a really smart guy. It's very strange. It's very odd. There are anomalies. I agree. But I'm not sure that's enough to present it to a judge in a court of law.
Well, I think that what Trump presented to a court of law was much, you could say it was much less, or even at the very least the same amount.
Yeah,
So,
I agree, but that's why he lost.
Courts,
that's why he lost, though.
Right, and that's all that I think that we're saying here, and certainly your guest is saying, prove it, that's fine, just do the process, right?
I think
Let's
the Harris, I agree,
process.
I hear you. I think the problem is that you have the Harris campaign and many Democrats out there. They talk about attacks on democracy every single day. Heck, I talk about it. And I think a lot of people in that orbit are afraid to go down that rabbit hole because then they might be looked at as hypocrites. That's my personal opinion, my friend. But I think it's very fair to ask questions. I think it's very fair to have guests like that on a show. I think it's very fair to have, listen, I've been having to listen to MAGA Republicans for years now, 4 years straight, 5 years straight, having to talk about election integrity and how Trump won the 2020 election, which we know didn't happen. But I've had to listen to those jokers for years. 702-221-7283, the number to call. Let's go to Gary. Gary's next on PTL. What's up, Gary?
Hey, how you doing, Brian?
Good.
I'm calling back from yesterday. Thank you for bringing this gentleman on and saying what he had to say. I believe everything he said. I've thought it was something strange about this election from the beginning, and going back to, and I watched his campaigns and Kamala's campaigns, and I was wondering what was he campaigning on. He wasn't doing anything. He wasn't saying anything to build his base. Nothing. Just calling names, dancing. They're really talking about nothing. He never answered any questions.
You're not going to get an argument from me on that. You're not going to
why?
You're not going to get an argument. But that's Donald Trump. That's the way he's always been. He never talked substance. He never.
But he was.
Yeah.
He wasn't building his base. And when I look at Hillary's, people talk about a female.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Hillary ran for president, but she's Caucasian. So I know that a lot of folk didn't vote for Kamala because of color. But
I think more.
Kamala got there.
I disagree with you a little bit. I think more people didn't vote for her because she's a woman. I'm not sure, because if it's the color factor, then how do you? Listen, I'm just asking you this question. Then how do you talk about, listen, Barack Obama won and he was the president for 8 years. So if it was all about color, why was he elected twice, duly elected? So that's why I'm saying I think her being a woman, I think played a larger role than the color of her skin. That's just my personal opinion.
Well, I disagree with you on that. When I look that Hillary's campaign versus Kamala's campaign
Mm-hmm.
and the small amount of time that
Yeah.
she had,
Right.
there's a difference with the voting. I mean,
But Hillary still
I don't
lost,
know
though,
the right.
sir. But, sir, Hillary still lost. And she had a wealth of experience. You want to talk about somebody? Listen, I'm not saying Kamala wasn't qualified. I think she was. But Hillary had a wealth of experience. One could argue she was overqualified for the position, yet Hillary Clinton still lost. So how do you explain that? She had more time to campaign. She was the first lady. She was, so much experience she had.
But Brian, they tried so much to not have her elected. I mean, when Comey came out with that information, and then they waited about a week or two to say that there was nothing going on, that hurt her campaign tremendously. And I felt that that was the plan to do. They knew it was nothing going on, but they brought it out at the last minute.
All right, but it goes back to, okay, I
there.
hear you, sir. I hear what you're saying. But it goes back to what I said with Stephen, which is this. In order for a judge to take a look at a case, there has to be some evidence. There can't just be an anomaly. There can't just be a feeling. I'm not discounting some of the things that you're saying, and I'm not discounting some of the things that Stephen has said. All I'm simply saying, and I'm trying to be fair, is that if you're going to go show this evidence to a judge, which is what you would have to do in order for a recount or anything to happen, there has to be real hard evidence. And all due respect to Stephen, I didn't hear anything he said that was direct evidence that would lead me to believe that the election was stolen or hacked. Now, he brought up a lot of good points. He brought up a lot of strange anomalies. I agree. But we need something more than that in order for an election to be overturned, or even a judge, let's start there, to look at a case and say, all right, I think we need a recount. 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you would like to be a part of the conversation. All right, let's go to Todd. Todd is next up on PTL. Hey, Todd, what's going on?
Hi, how are you today?
Good.
I just wanted to say to you, you're right. The Democrats are about community, so they're not going to say, oh, this was stolen and so forth, because that would just be a tit for tat, and then we'll never have trust in an election. So
right.
Really, when you think about it, they just don't want to play the Trump game. I will like to say this, though. I did bring this up to you yesterday, and I'm very happy you brought this gentleman on in a post. And when you see Trump-only voters, I mean, no down ballots, like plus, 375,000 in each of the swing states, and
That's
it's just
weird.
a Trump-only vote, no down.
Very
What's
bizarre.
that about? That's
Very bizarre.
very suspicious.
Very.
Right?
I don't
that's
disagree.
what caught my eye.
I don't disagree with
So,
you.
but I know this. Our side's about community. The other side's about me. I always keep telling that. They're about me, and we're about community. So we're not going to bring it up because we want to hope that we can. No, there's going to be an overreach.
Yeah, it's to me.
Okay,
It's
can
so
we be
Todd.
blunt about it? Trump's going to overreach, and
Yeah.
here's what we have to do. Think of the days of Selma. What got the public's attention?
Right.
Overreach, overzealousness,
Yeah.
and cruelty. And everyone looked and said, oh, we can't do this. Second part, when he starts taking programs away, starts doing this doji garbage where they're just going to eliminate. These are going to hurt real people.
Yeah.
And that's going to be seen. That's going to be a real
That's
way
what's
for us.
that's what's the terrible part about, there's a lot of terrible things I think that Donald Trump sadly is going to do. I think he's going to ruin our economy. He's terrible for women. He's terrible for our brave men and women in uniform. I think he's just terrible for the country. But I think what makes this situation really dangerous, and this is a different topic from possible the election being hacked, is that Donald Trump, like he did in 2016 and like he will do for the next 4 years. And this isn't a policy disagreement, because I have plenty of those when it comes to Trump. We are going to be more divided than ever. I think we're more divided right now as a country than we've been in my lifetime. Race, cultural issues on the trans community, the gay community, across the board, we are very divided. I'm 44 years old. I think we're more divided now than we've ever been in this country. Imagine where this country will be in 4 years. I'm not talking about the economy. I'm not talking policy per se. Just from a standpoint of how divided we are now, it scares me to think how divided we're going to be in 4 years. 702-221-7283, the number to call. Let's go to Shelly. Shelly is next up on PTL. Hey, Shelly, what's going on?
Hey, Brian. It's Shelley from West Virginia again.
Good to hear
How
from
are you?
Good to hear from you, Shelly. I'm doing fine. What's on your mind today?
Hey, that gentleman you had on, it sounds great. I mean, not great that if it were stolen, it happened. But, I mean, I'm just not ready to go down the conspiracy theory road. You know?
I'm not focused on it either. Today, obviously, we had this gentleman on because I had dozens and dozens of people that have reached out to me that wanted him to come on, and he seems like a really nice man and smart.
Very nice.
Yeah, but again, I have never said on this show, quite frankly, that any election has been stolen in my lifetime.
No.
Even going back to the George W. Bush Al Gore race, which was unbelievably close.
Yes.
After Al Gore exhausted all of the courts that he could and with abiding by the law, he did the right thing. And by the way, he was well in the right to do that. That election was so close. I don't blame him for doing that. But
I don't either.
He eventually conceded. And that's what gets me more upset about than anything is that Donald Trump cries that elections are stolen, and then until he wins, right? And any reasonable human being with an IQ over 20 understands that he's just full of crap. But even worse, he Joe Biden did something that Donald Trump never did, which was invite Joe Biden to the White House, a peaceful transfer of power.
Right.
And when these right-wing idiots, these right-wing buffoons say it was a peaceful transfer of power, they don't want to talk about January 6th. They don't want to talk about the fact that Donald Trump continues to lie about the 2020 election. They don't want to talk about the fact that Donald Trump did not invite Joe Biden to the White House. It's very clear here. Let's not get too much into the weeds.
I don't want to talk about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
But President Biden is a very decent person. I believe in my soul.
Sure.
That he is a very decent person.
Yeah.
But I myself am not ready to go down that hole yet.
Yeah. And I understand why. I understand.
I just think we would look stupid.
Well, I understand. I understand why you're not willing to go down that road. I really do, and I respect you for that. And I think until we have some really, really hard evidence, should never bring any of this to the courts or the judges. Doesn't mean people can't ask questions. Doesn't mean Stephen can't continue to do what he's doing. But asking the Harris campaign to go to court over this without any real hard evidence is not a good idea, in my personal opinion. With that being said, Elon Musk anywhere near the White House is a bad look for the country. The conflicts of interest alone. I don't trust Elon Musk. I don't trust Donald Trump. I don't trust JD Vance. I don't trust many of these MAGA Republicans who were willing to stand behind Matt Gaetz. What does that tell you about these Republicans who less than a year ago were basically calling him a pedophile? And then when Donald Trump picks him as the AG, they're going to defend him. Oh, I trust Donald Trump. That's who these MAGA Republicans are. They'll do and say anything for Donald Trump and curl themselves into a pretzel. And you're damn right sure they'll be doing the exact same thing over the course of the next 4 years. And there'll be very few Republicans I can count on my finger that will actually stand up to this racist, thug, liable, sexual abuser. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Marion. Marion's next. What's up, Marion?
Hey, Brian. I heard Stephen, and even before Stephen came on, there was some stuff on the social media platforms about this. I do believe Stephen's right. Elon, if he can put rockets on the moon and has tons of money and he can do driverless cars, he can mess with voting machines. That's one point. The second point is Ivanka Trump has patents on voting machines. That's a second point. And Russia did say, I think it was election night, they put pictures up of Melania Trump naked, and they said that Trump owed them for him winning the election. So I believe Stephen's right, and I do think somehow we have to find a way to recount this.
Well, the only way that's going to happen, and I'm just giving you reality, the only way there's going to be a recount is if there's more evidence than that. I'm not trying to discount what you're saying, but there's not going to be a recount with that. If an attorney showed up in court And if they did what some of the Trump attorneys did, it's the reason why judges found no merit. 0-61. If an attorney just showed up in court and said, "Boy, you know what? Ivanka Trump has patents for voting machines, and boy, what Elon Musk did was really, really bad in trying to influence the election." Again, with respect,
wouldn't they be able to hire people that know about like electronic systems?
They would have to. They would have to do that.
Recount?
You'd have to do that now. You'd have to do that now. There's not going to be a recount.
You have to do it now. Yeah,
and
it's really odd that he won all of the battleground states when
Sure.
you and I and everybody else thought that he would. That you would at least win the popular vote. It doesn't make any sense.
I understand what you're saying. Very odd. Doesn't make any sense. I can understand why you would say something like that, but very odd and doesn't make any sense will not win a case in court. That's all I'm saying. Listen, there is nobody in this country maybe more aggressive at not wanting Donald Trump to be the president of the United States again than me, maybe Melania, but that's another story. But that doesn't mean I'm going to sit here and do what these MAGA idiots have done for years. The election was stolen. Mike Pence doesn't have the courage. I'm not one of those people because I'm not an idiot. And I'm a fairly intelligent person like these clowns across the country who still think that Trump won. Let me be very clear on that, okay? If you're a Trump supporter and you're still not willing to admit that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election, then you're an idiot. Simply put. But to be fair, and some of my listeners aren't going to like what I'm about to say, but I don't say things in fear of what people might think. If you're one of these people right now that says Kamala Harris won, she won in a landslide, Donald Trump cheated, and if you don't have any evidence to prove that, then I would say the same about you. You have to have evidence. Doesn't mean you can't ask questions. Asking questions is different than saying the election was stolen. Donald Trump never asked questions. He said the election was stolen. Many of his supporters didn't ask questions or talk about anomalies. They said the election was stolen, and then they had something called January 6th. So I don't want to try to conflate or compare the two, but don't be like them, I guess is what I'm trying to say. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Anthony's next. What's up, Anthony?
Hey. Hello?
Yeah. Hey, Anthony. What's up?
All right. I'm calling from Canada. I was born in Florida. Just to give you a little take on what I think, okay? Stop trying to look at that the election was stolen, right, from Elon Musk. And I would just suggest to you to look at why Elon Musk had such an influence on the election.
Well, I think
right?
there's a couple reasons. I think there's a couple reasons for that, and I'll get your thoughts on it. But I think his money, number one, he has influence over X, which I think is a cesspool of right-wing buffoonery and bigotry. But owning X is a big part of it. He has so much money and so much influence, and he knows so many other influential people. I think that's a big part of it.
It's not only that, it's the showing up to Joe Rogan. It's the showing up to this, the fights. It's the showing up to be part of all of that. You need to combat that with what you're doing and other people like you, that you need to basically come up to an alternative to people showing up to boxing fights. Right? You need to cultivate that from the very, very.
Well, I think the Democrats have an issue that you are speaking of, which is if you're going to talk about Joe Rogan, Kamala Harris should have done the Joe Rogan show. I was hoping that she would.
Made a difference. You're correct, but the cultivation needs to be deeper than that.
Well, I agree. So, I'm not saying it's just one thing, but here's what I am saying in regards to Joe Rogan. She should have done more younger podcasts. Right-wingers out there seem to own, this horrible platform called Rumble and all these other platforms where you have so many younger people. Number one, she didn't do enough interviews. She should have done more of those interviews. Number two, left-wingers out there need to do more of these podcasts. And number three, campaigns need to stop being so careful with their candidates. I'm going to tell you this, and I got frustrated with it at times. I was glad that she did Fox News in a few interviews. Her campaign, in my opinion, did a lousy job in retrospect in just keeping her back from doing so many different interviews. And it's not just the Joe Rogan show. I'm not saying that, but I am saying it's those types of decisions that the campaign made that I think were a big part of why she lost the election, and they'll never own it. If they really want to look in the mirror, let me give you a perfect example of what I'm talking about, and you could tell me, sir, whether you agree or not, okay? very simply put, every time Donald Trump came to town, he would do a conservative radio show here. Now, I'm going to be honest with all of you. There is not one show locally in this town that has 5% of the listeners that I have. First of all, I'm doing a national show. It's out of here locally on an FM AM station. That's number one. Number two, there's not one show that he did, literally, that is going to help him because he's only on right-wing conservative radio. And again, no listeners. The host that they have, several hosts in this town, literally can't take more than 2 phone calls in a 2 or a 3 hour show. They're pathetic. So why am I bringing that up? I'm bringing it up, sir, because I reached out to the Harris campaign almost on a daily basis. Now, they did give me some pretty darn good guests, right? I had some good guests on this show from the campaign. I got Bernie Sanders on the program. I got Adam Kinzinger on the program. I interviewed Mark Cuban. So they did give me some good guests. But I couldn't get Kamala Harris or even Tim Walz on the show for 10 minutes. It's not because I don't have the reach, and it's not because I'm anti-Kamala Harris or Tim Walz. The only reason I can think of is why they were too careful. No. And that's very frustrating to me, because if I kissed Donald Trump's ass, by the way, I don't kiss anybody's ass. Donald Trump would be the last guy that I would do that with. But if I did, I guarantee you I would have gotten Donald Trump on this show multiple times in the last year. Now, that's a criticism to the Harris campaign. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
So I think you're correct in the sense that if you would have asked Donald Trump to come onto your show, he would have showed up. However, for you to expect someone like Kamala Harris to come onto your show, I don't think she would have ever have done that because of the state that the Democrats are in. You understand that Donald Trump goes to these fights. We just saw Linda McMahon put into a tombstone from that other person. This resonates with the base, whereas nothing I think you could have done, or even Right Plight, which is what I listen to also, I don't think you guys could have done anything.
Well, I'm not, okay, I hear you.
In terms of sensationalism, that could have ever turned these people you know what I mean?
I hear what you're saying, sir, but let me interject here, and I do appreciate you calling from Canada. Thank you. Here's where I respectfully disagree with you. I'm not talking about revving up the base. She campaigned in front of thousands and thousands of people. She tried to rev up the base. I'm not talking about revving up the base. Donald Trump didn't win because he revved up the base of his supporters. One of the reasons why he won is because he reached out to a younger audience. He went on those younger podcasts, not to rev up the base. I don't think Donald Trump going on Joe Rogan's show revved up the base. It's to get a younger audience, people in their 20s. It's one of the main reasons why Donald Trump won, not because he revved up the base, because he did more interviews and more podcasts reaching out to a younger audience. And I think that's what cost Kamala Harris. One of the reasons why what cost her the election. Let's go to David. David's next on PTL. Hey, David, what's going on, man?
Hey, Brian, thank you. In regards to what you just said before, I mean, I agree with you that, you know, she should have went outside of her base to get more people to listen to her. But the thing of it is from what I'm seeing from a lot of Democrats, like Joy Reid a couple of weeks ago when she said Kamala ran a flawless campaign, which is obviously ridiculous because there are plenty of flaws in her campaign. And my point is a lot of these Democrats, from what I've seen, don't really want to acknowledge that there were a lot of problems. And my point with that is, you know, if you don't learn from past mistakes, you're just going to continue to make them in the future. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you can say all these things about Trump that are, you know, whether you like him or hate him, you know, you at least have to recognize that he recognized that the new form of media is sort of podcasting and online shows and everything. It's not MSNBC and Fox and CNN anymore. And her campaign didn't seem to want to either recognize that, or they just, you know, they didn't want to do it for whatever reason. But I guess my point is, in the future, I don't know if people on the left are going to do something differently, or if they're just going to continue to make the same mistake and just do the same.
Well, I guess we'll find out, right? I guess we'll find out. But I got to tell you something, not that I would insinuate for sure, because I don't know who's going to run in 4 years. But Gavin Newsom's not afraid to go on any shows. I'll tell you that. Pete Buttigieg is not afraid to go on other shows. I want someone to run for president in 2028 that is willing to. Listen, I like Ocasio-Cortez. I think she's a good person. She's very smart. Has Ocasio-Cortez ever gone on Fox News? I want somebody that's not afraid to go on Fox News. I want somebody that regularly is not afraid to go on a Newsmax or Fox News. I want somebody that's willing to go toe-to-toe with Sean Hannity. And Pete Buttigieg is that guy. Gavin Newsom is that guy. Ocasio-Cortez is not that person. Kamala Harris is not that person. She's just not built for that.
What about Josh Shapiro?
Yes, 150%. I left him out, Josh Shapiro.
Well, here's the thing. I agree with you in that. But the thing of it is, and this isn't my opinion, this is what, Bill Maher said, and Bill Maher's a liberal. He said he has trouble getting Democrats on his own show.
Well, that's absurd.
And my point is that Republicans, Republicans are they're more willing to go on platforms. Democrats simply aren't.
I agree.
I mean, you list the Democrats, but there's not enough of them.
So I agree. Now, to be fair, I agree with what you just said. I don't disagree with you at all, but I will say this to be fair, sir. Donald Trump, the last couple of years, while he did a town hall, he wasn't going on MSNBC. He wasn't going on CNN. Jim Jordan ain't going to be seen on MSNBC. Jordan did do an interview with Jake Tapper a few years ago, which was great, but there are a lot of MAGA Republicans that will refuse to go on CNN. But your point is well taken, and I agree with you. I don't know who's going to run for president in 4 years on the left, but I will tell you this. I will not vote for somebody who is not willing to go on the opposition. I will not support somebody unless, listen, if they're going against a MAGA Republican, I'll probably be forced to vote for them instead of the MAGA Republican. But so I shouldn't say I'll never vote for them, but I do not want to support somebody who is not willing to do interviews with the opposition. That's not what I want in a leader. If you're not willing to do an interview and take it from the opposition, then how can you be the leader of the free world? I'm just being square with all of you. 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you do want to be a part of the conversation. All right. Let's see here. Who are we going to be going to next here? Why don't we go to Jack? Jack is next up on PTL. Hey, Jack, what's going on, man? Thanks for calling in.
Hey, Brian, man. I want to thank you for having Spoonemore on.
Sure.
I'm just on the topic of whether it warrants, courts or somebody else to look into. I'm struggling to think. I remember that they had audits of for bamboo fibers by the cyber ninjas and dead people, and they were citing rally sizes and manipulated videos. I don't know what proof they had. Now I know they went to court with a lot of those cases, and they were dismissed on standings. But still, audits were opened, hand recounts were open.
Right.
I don't remember them having some concrete evidence of proof that someone.
Well,
cheated.
they didn't.
It's always on.
Yeah.
This looks off. We're going to look into it.
So Jack, here's what I'll say to what you just said, right? There's a reason why Donald Trump was 0-61 in the courts, because they embarrassed themselves. They looked up to the My Pillow guy, Mike Lindell, that moron, and, Dinesh D'Souza trying to make money off of that stupid, it was a fairy tale, 2,000 Mules. So there's a reason why judges, found no merit and threw out those cases, because there was no evidence. The problem I have here, and I think we need to hold the same standard to both sides, which is if you want to recount and you want your day in court, don't embarrass yourself. You better have evidence. And I like Stephen. I appreciated Stephen Spoonemore coming on. He seems like a really nice guy, a smart guy, not biased. He's a registered Republican. And he even agreed with me. While there could be anomalies, which he spoke about, a lot of strange things about this election, which he spoke about, that's not enough for a judge to take the case and take it seriously. I'm just trying to be honest with my listeners. Listen, I would love, let me rephrase that. Maybe I would. If there was actual real evidence, a smoking gun, that the election was quote unquote rigged, there's nothing more I'd want to do than to be able to go on the air and say, here's the evidence. It needs to be presented in a court of law. Trump needs to get the hell out. But I can't do that. I'm not like them. I'm not like Mark Levin or Sean Hannity or blowhard racist witch Laura Ingraham or any of these right-wing idiots that do shows locally here or nationally. I'm not them for a lot of different reasons. I have listeners and many of them don't. Maybe not the national people that I mentioned, but the locals. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make here, I digress. The point I'm trying to make here is that we can't say, now you can say it, you have the right to, and I'm not saying you are, but I can't say the election was stolen. And I can't say that it was rigged and there was cheating. And I can't say we need to bring this to court. There needs to be a recount until somebody presents me real evidence that the election could have been stolen. And as much as I appreciated the conversation with Stephen, he didn't present me a smoking gun. He's a nice guy. He's smart. He said a lot of things that were correct about, boy, this is weird. This is an anomaly. I didn't disagree with that. But even he agreed with me. You have to have evidence, man, smoking gun, to present it in a court of law. I'm not sure. I don't think he has that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Now, I agree with you. And I'm just, what I'm leaning towards is to open further investigations into it. I'm not saying bring it to court until you do have.
Well, that costs money. Where does the money come from? I mean, you're going to have private investigators that are going to have to come up with real evidence, which I'm not saying I'm against, by the way. If people want to hire, listen, if George Soros wants to put $100 million behind a bunch of private investigators, because it wouldn't be law enforcement, it'd be private investigators that might also work in law enforcement. But if people want to put money into this and they think that they'll be able to find something, then I'm okay with that. Let's ask questions. Fine. But we can't claim that an election was stolen and we can't bring it to court. I know I'm beating a dead horse here without evidence. And I appreciate your call, my friend Jack. And if Stephen gets any hard evidence, then he's welcome to come back on here and we'll talk about it. Who are we going to next here? 702-221-7283. Let's go to Nancy. Nancy's next on PTL. Hey, Nancy.
Hi, Brian. How are you today?
Hey, good. What's on your mind, Nancy?
I just wanted to thank you for not promoting a bandwagon of, the election was stolen.
Yeah. Yep. I've never said that. If you listen,
saddens.
you know I've never said that, and I'm not about to say it until I see real evidence.
Yeah, it saddens me that people want to go down a rabbit hole that doesn't exist.
So Nancy, I agree. Let me ask you this. Here's what I think we all should focus on as Americans, especially those that are anti-Trump. We need to hold him to account. When he gives us BS, we need to talk about it. All the promises that he made, whether it be ending the war in the Ukraine in a day, which obviously is not going to happen, or whether it be he's going to lower taxes for middle America, which I don't believe is going to happen. He said he was going to deport 20 million people. I certainly hope that doesn't happen. It'll ruin the economy. All the promises that he's made, we need to hold him to account. We need Democrats in Washington, D.C. to hold his feet to the fire more than ever before. And more importantly than that, even maybe, we need to call out the MAGA Republicans that kiss the ring of Donald Trump, and we need to question them and make them feel awkward when we ask them facts versus fiction, and question them every single day. That's what I think we all need to do as Americans.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, look at the Gates situation.
Yeah, look at that, right? First of all, I'm glad you brought that up again, because just about all the Republicans hate him, right? They all hate him. You had Republicans that were on the record doing interviews saying that he was showing naked pictures of women that he had sex with on the House floor. There are some people that know exactly what's in that report. I can guarantee you that when Matt Gaetz sat down with JD Vance, and then a day or two later he withdrew his name from the attorney general position, he told them what's in that report. JD Vance knows what's in that report. These MAGA Republicans, many of them, they know what's in that report. They know why Matt Gaetz stepped down. They know why he wanted the AG job. And they know that he had sex with an underage girl. Okay? They know. Yet, these people are such bad people that they were willing to back him. They were willing to say, well, let's let this play out. I respect Donald Trump's decisions because they have absolutely no backbone on why a man who allegedly had sex with an underage girl, which I believe her, and there's probably more out there that we don't know about. Nancy Mace was more concerned about a trans woman going into the woman's bathroom. These are who these MAGA Republicans are. They're despicable human beings. They're a disgrace to the American people. They have absolutely no backbone, and they will kiss the ring of Donald Trump if it means costing American lives, if it means dehumanizing people, in this case, maybe transgenders, or telling women what to do with their own bodies. And Nancy Mace goes on every interview and she talks about how she was raped, how she was the victim of sexual assault. Horrible, horrible. But then we're supposed to believe that she's genuine when she talks about that, and yet she supports a convicted 34-count felon and someone who is a liable sexual abuser, adjudicated rapist. These Republicans have absolutely no credibility, zero. And I'm sick of it. I am sick of the fact, and I'm sickened to myself, that regardless of what some people in this country might think about Democrats, regardless of what some people in this country might think about Kamala Harris, I would probably disagree with a lot of their opinions, that they would rather support a liable sexual abusing adjudicated rapist, a 34-count felon, and a bunch of criminals that are around him. That's right, I said it, criminals. This is where we are as a country. This is where we are as America. This is not a mandate. Well, Brian, what do you mean? Why is it not a mandate? He won all the swing states. Yeah, he won all the swing states by a couple 100,000 votes. He won the popular vote by about 1 to 2%. This was one of the closest elections, the top 3 closest elections we've had since the 1880s. Yes, that's right. You can look that up if you don't believe me. I believe one of those close elections was John F. Kennedy. This was an extremely close election. This is not a mandate. So if the Nancy Maces of the world and the other Republicans, some of the MAGA Republicans in office, think that trans women in bathrooms is the number one issue on Americans' minds, well, there's probably a lot of bigots out there that are very concerned about this. But they don't seem to be concerned about Matt Gaetz, are they? We have a lot of Republicans out there that would have had no problem with Matt Gaetz being the Attorney General, including Donald Trump. Why is it that Donald Trump isn't criticized? Mr. Trump, why would you even think about putting this guy in the AG chair? Why are there very few Republicans out there that are asking those questions? In fact, they would have endorsed Matt Gaetz. In fact, we've learned stories that Donald Trump and members of his immediate orbit were threatening other Republican senators. We're threatening others for re-election campaigns. We're going to put all the money against your opposition. We know that in at least a few instances. Why is that? Why is nobody on the right criticizing Donald Trump for even making this decision to begin with? But they want to call you a pedophile, right? They want to call you a pedophile. Meanwhile, many of the people that call people on the left pedophiles are the same people that endorsed Donald Trump, who was hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein over 7 times on the flight log. Jeffrey Epstein characterized Donald Trump as his best friend in audio recordings. But they want to call you the pedophile, even though they're the ones that would have endorsed Matt Gaetz. Think about that. 702-221-7283, the number to call. Let's go to Mark. Mark is next up on PTL. Hey, Mark, what's going on?
Hey, Brian. Mark from PA, by the way, Pennsylvania. I truly believe that the election was not stolen, but I do believe it was interfered, such as all the bomb threats and things of that nature.
Well, we definitely know it was interfered. I agree with you. There's 100%. Right. That's 100%. Russia interfered, and the bomb. You're 100% because we can back that up with facts, Mark. That's why.
Right. Now, about 2 days ago, I was listening to a podcast, and I don't know why it popped up on my feed because I never followed this guy. I don't even remember his name. But a very high-ranking official from the Democratic National Campaign was talking, and I was listening to him, and he stated that the Democratic Party and the campaign is severely broken. And the reasons he gave was that, number one, they're using the same consultants from the year 2000. It's the same people, the same consultants with the same ideas, and they're not connecting with new voters. Now, realize that every year, Brian, there's a whole new flock of voters that are people that are eligible to vote, right? Every year.
Right.
They turn 18 and they can vote.
Correct.
We're not connecting with them. And the same consultants are worried about how going on MSNBC,
right,
CNN. That doesn't work no more. You have to go on every single podcast and you can't keep discussing.
Mark, what have I been preaching for months? For months, I was begging Harris, and yes, okay, she did an interview with Brett Baer. That wasn't enough. Okay, I was happy she did the Howard Stern show. That wasn't enough. I was happy and I thought they would do more. I would love to know.
I made so many mistakes.
I would love to know, Mark, if I get the chance to talk to a Quentin Fulks, who, by the way, has done this show before. He basically ran Kamala Harris's campaign. I would love to speak with him and say, why did you guys not decide to do the Joe Rogan show? Why did you guys not decide to do Newsmax or OAN? Why did you guys...
They were protecting her, bro.
Right. I think that's the answer, but I'm trying to figure out how they would spin it. They're the ones, in my personal opinion, that are most responsible, besides the people who obviously I hold to account, who decided to vote for Donald Trump. Okay?
Right. You know how they would spin it? They would state, well, she's going to be talking to MAGA voters anyway. That would be their answer.
Well, I think that's a really stupid answer, and I think it's part of the reason why
Exactly.
I think it's really part of the reason why she lost, Mark. I'm in complete agreement with you, and I think it's wrong. 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you would like to be a part of the program. And again, that number, if you'd like to be a part of the show, is 702-221-7283. Let's go to Ray. Ray is next up on PTL. Hi, Ray.
702. Hello, this is Brian.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
I talked to you a couple of weeks ago, and I'm from Daytona Beach. We followed the Matt Gaetz thing for the last few years. That guy is worse than a double sleaze bag. He was in cahoots with the Seminole County tax collector who's in jail. And I agree with everything you say. Matt Gaetz is a sleaze bag. Trump's going to screw the whole country into oblivion.
Well, let me ask you a question about that. I don't necessarily disagree with you, of course, right? We're on the same side here. Are you like me where you say to yourself, I'm not rooting for the country to fail, right? And I'm not even necessarily rooting, since Trump is going to be the president, I'm not even necessarily rooting for him to fail, but I just think it's just inevitable. But you're not necessarily rooting for that to happen. Is that a fair assessment?
No, I'm not voting for that. I'm a retired union plumber, 88 years old, and I have voted ever since the Kennedy Nixon in 60. So I've been around for a year or two.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So listen.
I was born in Newark, New Jersey, and we moved to Fort Lauderdale in 1954.
Oh boy, you got some interesting people in Florida, don't you? I've heard rumblings that Matt Gaetz could be the next governor, but I don't know if that's going to happen now. But you never know in Florida, right, sir? Well, thank you so much for calling in. God bless you. And when on your 100th birthday, I want you to call back. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to Carl. Carl is next up on PTL. What's up, Carl?
Yeah, hey, Brian. Listen, I got something really funny. You talked before about Mace, and she passed that bill that men, transgenders can't go into a... Well, do you remember years ago, just before Trump became president, when he ran a beauty pageant, he bragged over and over about how he used to go into the young girls' changing and restrooms and see the girls undressed. And she was complaining about men going into places where women... Well, what about Trump? He used to do that all the time.
Of course. I mean, I talk about that all the time, Carl, about how when he ran pageants, he used to go into these women's locker rooms, and he bragged about it on the Howard Stern show. But, these right-wing evangelicals will not talk about that, but they want to talk about Hunter Biden's laptop. I mean, these people are a joke. They're all a joke.
But that Mace, she said a male cannot go anywhere near a women's, and that was one of his main things he loved to do.
It's such a good point. Nancy Mace doesn't want a trans woman in a woman's bathroom, but Donald Trump going into a woman's locker room for sexual reasons. How do we know that? Because he bragged about it on the Howard Stern show. Apparently Nancy Mace is just totally fine about that. But if you address that with her, she'll say you're rape shaming her because she's an idiot. That's why. She's a moron who's mentally ill and a bigot. Let's go to Stanley. Stanley's next. Hello, Stanley.
Pam Bondi's my favorite cabinet member because I want to have sex.
I can guarantee you that if there's anybody that's not having sex, it's that guy. Stanley is the guy that will go into a prostitution parlor, or I'm sorry, I don't want to demean anybody who does it for a living because I don't have any problem with it so long as it's legal. But Stanley is the guy that will go into Pahrump where prostitution is legal, and he'll go into a bunny ranch, and he can show up with $10,000 in his wallet, and they still won't go anywhere near him. Thank you for the call, Stanley. 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you would like to be a part of the conversation. All right, let's go to, I believe we have Christine, Christine is next up on PTL. We got to run through these phone calls because we got our guest waiting in the lobby here. Let's go to Christine. What's up, Christine?
Hey, so I just wanted to express my concern. You know, the Spinamore thing, I was following it prior to your show, so I do appreciate you having him on. Here's my question. We're not allowed to really ask. We're allowed to ask questions, but we can't really take it anywhere to really figure out if this is an issue, right? But how do we know then for future elections? This is my concern. So who's to say in 2 years or in 4 years, if we don't investigate this and this isn't investigated,
well, it
how
depends.
do we know?
It depends what you mean by investigate. If people want to investigate it, they can pay money and have private investigators investigate it. And then if the investigators can come up with actual real hard evidence, that's the time where you take it to court. The problem is that we can't really take something to court without any real evidence. We can think that something is weird, and we can think that, for example, that the election might have been hacked, and it's okay to ask questions, but we're allowed to investigate it. When I say we, I mean you can come up with money and hire private investigators and come up with a slush fund. So don't think like we can't investigate it. You can. All right, let's go to Laura. Laura's next. Who do we have? We have, Elaine. Elaine is next on PTL. Hi, Elaine.
Hi.
Hey, what's on your mind?
Oh, I thought I have his show on. I thought I was going to connect. Is this Brian?
Yes, it is. You're on the air. Go right ahead.
Oh, okay. So I'm a statistician. I'm a former math teacher, and I've been following stats throughout the whole election. And 50% of Trump's voters made less than $50,000. I was door knocking in Pennsylvania for Harris, and most of the independent doors we went to were concerned about their groceries.
Right.
And the 50% now that voted for him, that were making under $50K, I hope they remember the $700 a week American Rescue Plan.
Yeah, well, they're not. You bring up, I'm sorry because I'm up against the clock because I could talk to you about this for hours. You made a very good point there. Most of the people in Donald Trump's base that vote for Donald Trump are living paycheck to paycheck. Many of them are uneducated white people who are ill-informed. They'll complain about the cost of their eggs, but they'll save up for months. They'll save up $500 to buy his gold sneakers. I want you to call back when we have a little bit more time. I got to spin through a few more callers. I apologize, and then we got to take a break. Let's go to Laura. Laura's next on PTL. Hi, Laura.
Is it me?
Yes, go right ahead, Laura. You're next. Go right ahead.
Hi, yeah. I've been listening to your program for a while, and I understand everything that you guys are discussing, but I'm really kind of frustrated. I think we're missing the point. I think we're fixating on the shiny ball over there about whether the election was stolen.
Well, I don't think it was stolen.
By actual manipulation of the votes.
Right.
I think the bigger picture is there was so much manipulation leading up to swaying the opinions of these voters that resulted in this vote.
Yeah.
The dirty money, the stacking of all the courts from the appellate up to the Supreme Court, judgments that were in favor of the Republicans. Some of the statutes that are being passed by Republicans, the gerrymandering.
Yeah.
And actually reducing the powers and authorities of Democratic governors in states with Republican senates. It's a bigger picture, and I think when we fixate on trying to punch, the Democrats punching each other and finding fault with a very short-term campaign that was run, though not flawless, it was pretty darn good.
Okay, so I hear that, but I
think we're missing the point. And we're going to get manipulated again if we keep fixating on the wrong thing.
Okay, so I've been trying. Yeah, I'm definitely not fixated on allegedly people saying that the election. As you know, I've never said the election is stolen. I'm focused on the mistakes that the Harris campaign made. Why almost half the country would vote for a liable sexual abusing adjudicated rapist, and I try to come up with reasons. I thought the campaign made a lot of mistakes. I thought Joe Biden.
I really don't. Oh.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I don't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay.
I think in trying to find fault with the Democratic campaign, because they're all over the map with that. There are people out there, she didn't go to the left enough. She didn't go to the right enough. She didn't talk to these people.
I know, but to be fair, I don't respectfully, I don't think I'm all over the map. They made mistakes. Joe Biden made a mistake. I respect Joe Biden. He should have stepped down earlier. 3.5 months was not long enough, so that was a big mistake there. There should have been a primary. They protected Kamala Harris too long. She should have done more interviews. I thought the messaging wasn't always great. I thought they should have been more aggressive. She had a good debate, no question about that, but I thought they should have been more aggressive with the threats and dangers of Donald Trump. And I'm sorry. I just think we're being complicit if we can't say, well, geez, why did this happen? It's not, listen, I think a lot of people are ill-informed that voted for Donald Trump, but I'm not going to sit here and say all of them or 99% of them. So I do think it's fair to criticize and to try to come up with reasons and solutions. I don't want Donald Trump in office again any more than you do. We're on the same page there, but I think it's fair to have those types of conversations. All right, it is a Friday. And man, it's been a stressful week, right, folks? You guys are feeling the stress that I'm going through here. The last couple of weeks, it's been rough. It's been rough. But we've had some great guests on, and we have some fun on the show. And I love all of you as listeners, and I want to have some fun next segment. So we're going to take a break. And when we come back, a guy joining me in studio who is probably one of the best musicians in this town, that's for sure. He's going to be performing with Sammy Hagar at the halftime show at the Raiders game. He's a part of the Raiders house band, and this guy's performed with some of the biggest names in the industry. His name is David Perico, and he's going to be joining us next. We're going to have a little fun. We're going to talk some music, maybe a little politics as well. So you're going to want to stick around for that. And maybe we'll take a few more calls in a little bit. We'll see how we'll see how it goes. But we'll take a quick break. I remind all of you, please check out my website, pushingthelimits.live. This is an independently owned radio show. We rely on great people like yourselves to support what we do here. If you go to pushingthelimits.live, we want you to subscribe to my YouTube page at PTL Radio Show. Of course, we want you to be a new follower on my Blue Sky account at PTL Radio Show. Subscribe to YouTube. And if you want to buy merchandise, shirts, hats, beanies, you name it, we sell it on there at pushingthelimits.live. And you could also donate. There's a donate button on the front page. So we appreciate all your support. And please check it out at pushingthelimits.live. All right, incredible musician coming up next. He's also on my side when it comes to politics. David Perico joining us next. Take a quick break. Be back right after this. It's Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
It's time to wake up and win the weekend. You're listening to the boss of the baseball. JD Vance, giving you that grease. Join me every Saturday and Sunday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific time for the live action on Vegas Scoreboard Express on KSHP 107.1 FM and AM 1400. Dive into the game day with my in-depth analysis, expert predictions, and winning plays from the sharpest minds in sports betting. It's more than just placing bets. It's about securing wins. Head over to jbtheticket.com and be sure to tune in to KSHP this weekend from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific time to ride the winning wave with VSX. Tune in and get your money back from the sports book. All money, all sports, no bull. Miss the live show? Subscribe to Vegas Scoreboard Express on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, and wherever you enjoy your favorite podcasts and radio listening.
Have you ever dreamed of having your own radio show or a podcast, but just didn't think it was possible? Well, dreams can come true. Radio U. Radio U is a 5-day course that'll teach you how to acquire your dream show. We'll teach you how to host, how to write commercial, how to interview, how to market, how to write a contract, and most importantly, how to monetize your dream radio show. You'll learn from some of the best in the business with over 75 years in broadcast experience. You'll learn from people like me. And the best part? Every single student will be live on the radio as part of the class. Plus, one student from each class will get their very own radio show. You'll be live on the air right here in Las Vegas. Radio U. The 5-day course is being offered at $699. For more information, give Radio U a call. 702-763-5024. That's 702-763-5024. Or check them out at radioyou101.com.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premier Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Who would have thought there'd be so many kids playing ice hockey in the desert? Jake Helps Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, founded by Gina Yusufzai 8 years ago, made it possible for families who can't afford the equipment and fees. Donate today at www.hockeyforkids.org and help us continue making a difference. Join us in supporting Jake Helps Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, where every kid gets a shot at the starting line. Just a reminder, our website is www.hockeyforkids.org.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Friday. Thank you so much for joining us. So, I get people all over the country. They call into the show every day, and there's a lot of people that are not very happy, including myself, the results of the elections. And they say, well, what do you do? What should we do, Brian? Not that I'm a therapist. I think I'm a therapist in my own mind. But I say, one of my passions in life is live music. I love music. I love live music. I'm still stuck in the 90s. I love 90s alternative rock bands, and I'm going to be seeing one of my favorite bands playing on Fremont Street Saturday night. Of course, that's the band Filter. A friend of mine, the lead singer of the band, formerly of Nine Inch Nails, Richard Patrick, is in town, so I'm going to be taking him to the Raiders game. So anyway, long story short, before I introduce my guest, I was at a local casino here in town, which I love. The people there at Ellis Island are great. They treat me great. I was there on Friday night watching the Raiders house band. This is the band that plays at Raiders games, and they're phenomenal. And by the way, I've been saying this for years. I said, man, this band is really good. They're great musicians. They're really fun to listen to. In fact, there are games where I want to get there early just to listen to the band play. That's how good they are. They're really good. And anyway, I'm at Ellis Island. I see the band play, and then afterwards, this beautiful lady comes up to me, and which is very rare, by the way, that happens. But in this case, it did. And she came up to me. She's like, "Are you Brian?" And I said, "Yeah, that's me. People have called me worse." She's like, "I follow you on social media. I love what you do on your show." I'm like, "Oh, man, that's really nice. That's really nice of you to say. I really appreciate that." And that was weird, too, because yesterday I was in my car, and somebody was yelling at me in the other car, and they told me to roll down my window. I listen to your radio show. So it's happening more and more, which is kind of cool. I love to meet some of my listeners. Anyway, she said, "I want to introduce you to my husband at Ellis Island. He's also in the band. His name is David." I said, "Great." So then I meet this guy, David, and he looks at me, and then he hears my voice, and he says, "Wait a second. I've been listening to you on the radio for years." I'm like, "Really?" And then we had a nice conversation. Really wonderful people. And David Perico is also a member of the Raiders house band. He's in like about 100 other bands, by the way, and we'll get to that. He's performed on stage with Rachel Platter and Lone Star, Diane Warwick, and he's going to be on the stage performing with Sammy Hagar at the halftime show, the Raiders game Sunday, which I will be attending, which is awesome. And David Perico joins us in the studio now. David, did I get that story accurate?
You got it accurate. You got it accurate. Great to be here.
Thanks. It's really cool to have you here. And you are just a phenomenal musician, by the way. Let me just start off by saying that.
Thank you.
You guys do such a great job with the Raiders house band, and you're in so many of these other bands. Pop Evolution, right? You got the Pop String Orchestra. I mean, you've been doing this. You've been a musician for how long? Since you were a little kid, or?
Yeah, since age 9.
Wow.
Since 1979.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So, like, what influenced you? I'm curious, as a musician, what are some of the artists that influenced you growing up?
Oh gosh, at 9 years old, I mean, 2 of the big trumpet players that were out at that time was
Don't say Kenny G.
No, we won't say that. Was Kenny, not Kenny. Chuck Mangione, Maynard Ferguson.
Yeah.
Those were 2 big, huge influences for me.
Like, what does it feel like for you when, all due respect to the Raiders, they're not doing very well this year.
Yeah.
We're not really here to talk about that, but they're what, 2-8, right?
Yeah.
But yet, these games are sold out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's packed in there. It's a huge party. We're talking, what, 60,000 people plus, right?
65, yeah.
What is it like to be performing in front of 65,000 people? That's kind of wild.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, it's such a great energy. The Raider Nation, we're all, the thing about the production and everyone in-house at Allegiant, it's all about the fan experience and also supporting the team.
Mhm.
So whatever we can do, whether it's the Raiderettes or with us,
Yeah.
you know, however we can contribute
think
to helping the team and supporting the team.
Super
and,
cool.
And creating a fan, you know, this experience where every game, and it's Las Vegas. Where else you're going to see a 15-piece, you know, band with the full female string section, you know, and the pregame, the postgame, the in-game. You have so many things. It's like a Super Bowl every Sunday.
What are some of the other musicians like that you've performed at halftime with? Because there's some big names that
Yeah, well, you mentioned Dionne Warwick,
Yeah.
Lone Star, Rachel Platten, obviously Sammy Hagar, Judith Brown. I'm probably missing some other people.
Yeah.
John Kay with
Oh,
Steppenwolf came
Sure.
in. We did
That's cool.
Born to Be Wild, which was awesome.
That's like
Yeah.
one of the most popular songs of our generation.
Yeah, so it was
Yeah.
great. It was
That's-
great.
When you meet these musicians, how special is it not only to perform with them, but to just to get to know them personally?
Well, it's an honor. I mean, and you know, meeting the musicians like one of my heroes, Sammy Hagar.
Right.
Okay, Van Halen. I grew up listening to Van Halen
Sure.
when that was on the radio. You know, and I remember when Sammy replaced David Lee Roth, and
That was a
and
fun time,
OU
yeah.
1812 and 5150, and then all of a sudden I'm texting Sammy Hagar, "Hey, how's this version? How's this version?" You know, because
That's super
we have
cool.
to write truncated versions of their hit songs to fit the halftime. So,
So you're literally working with them and you become friends with these people. I just think that
Yeah.
is, I think that is so cool. And luckily, you know, doing what I do for a living, I'm able to do the same.
Yeah.
I'm bringing my friend Richard, who's the lead, you know, to the Raiders game on
Yeah,
Sundays.
looking forward to that.
Which is yeah, super cool. So do you agree with me? Not to really interject politics into
Uh-huh.
this conversation, but I think I'll start by asking you this: like, yeah, there are people that are stressed out. Even people that voted for Trump, they're stressed out,
Mhm.
right? And they need an escape.
Yeah.
Some people want to go to a movie, which I think is great. I do that from time to time.
Yeah.
And some people want to go to a sporting event. I love sports. You know,
Yeah.
that's why, you know, the Raiders game. And a lot of people, their escape is music too. I think in some of my darkest times where I was going through some difficult times, as we all do, music is a great escape for me. And, you know, whether it's going to a concert or, you know, it's just listening to a live band perform anywhere, you know, listening to an album, one of your favorite albums that you listen to. I just think that music do you feel the same way that, I know we're, you know, without getting into what side of the aisle you're on, even though
Yeah.
I said on the air, I think we agree on a lot of things.
Yeah.
Music is such a great escape.
Yeah, it's an escape, and it also, as you just mentioned, the two great arenas, sports and music. Those two arenas bring people together.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, gay, straight, liberal, progressive.
Well, most of us don't care about that. Unfortunately, some on the far right do.
Yeah,
but-
far right. But when
Yeah.
it comes to being an entertainer and playing music, it's about the music,
Yeah.
and it's about escaping, you know, all of that stuff.
Okay, help me with this though,
Yeah.
David. Help me with this. So, people said a lot of things about Michael Jackson over the years, whether
Mhm.
he molested children or not. Listen, I
gosh.
don't know. What I do know is that I listened to his music, and he was one of the best performers of all time, right? And I didn't really, when I listened to his music, I didn't think about that stuff. But I've changed a little bit, and tell me if you think I'm wrong. I like some of Kid Rock's songs. He's got a few songs that are catchy. Now, would I ever pay to see him in concert? No. But he's a good performer. He's got a couple good songs. What is it? Ball with the Ball. That's one of them. And he's got a few. Okay. But I would not want to see him today. And the reason why I would not want to, and maybe I'm wrong in thinking this way. Maybe I am. But I wouldn't want to see him today because of what he represents.
Hmm.
You know, he uses homophobic slurs at times when he's on stage. He's been caught doing that. The lead singer of Stained, Aaron Lewis, extremely talented. I was thinking of going to see him last month because I really like his music. Like, I'm a fan of his music. I think he's very talented. But I can't it's hard for me to get past like a Ted Nugent and these kinds of artists that are just, in my opinion, very bigoted in nature. I can disagree with somebody. If they voted for Trump, fine, no problem. But when they start talking about it on stage, that's where I kind of get, okay, I don't want to see this guy. I don't want to hear about that stuff. Just like when Michael Jackson was live. I don't think people would want to hear him talk about how he showered with kids. People wouldn't want to hear that, right? I don't want to hear a musician talk about politics necessarily. Am I wrong? And does that make any sense?
No, it's an interesting question because here's the thing with musicians in general. Musicians are very
left.
Very.
I thought that's where you're gonna
No,
say.
you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. People get offended with entertainers in politics.
Mm.
For some reason that I don't know, just dribble, just play your trumpet, just sing.
Right.
But
Laura Ingraham.
you'll find that musicians are the most cultured and diverse because musicians travel a lot, experience a lot of different cultures abroad, and have a different take on just someone living in their hometown, never getting out of their state, let alone the country.
Right.
So, but that said, for some reason, when did educated and diverse become a bad thing? You know, that's where it's like, oh, you're just a musician. Well, wait a minute.
You have a platform.
Yeah.
And you have a right to your opinion. So
Yeah,
I
but
don't want to say that, but
So,
like,
but I don't use my platform ever,
Right.
anything politics or anything. That's personal to me.
Sure.
That's very personal to me.
Sure.
What happens is I think when you see a Beyonce and a Bruce Springsteen and et cetera, go up and people get taken offended by that because, oh, what do they know? They're just billionaires. They're just millionaires. What do they know? But they forget how they got there.
You know what, though? You're right.
How they got there, which is hours and thousands and millions of hours of dedication and discipline.
But
what
you're
it
right.
takes. What it takes.
You're right, David.
Yeah.
You make a good point there. See, I don't have a problem with a musician endorsing a candidate. That doesn't bother me. Like if Kid Rock wants to say, hey, not during a concert, but just whatever platform he wants to be on, whether it be the Republican National Convention, whatever.
Oh, yeah, but the slurs, I disagree with that.
Yeah,
There's no place for that.
Yeah, so like
For
if,
me.
if somebody, Aaron Lewis has yelled at people for not speaking English, he's just a jerk. Kid Rock has used homophobic slurs during his concerts, and it's like,
not cool.
Look, when a guy like a Steve Kerr, I'll go to sports for a moment.
Yeah.
And I have so much respect for Steve Kerr. I've had personal conversations with him. He lost his father to gun violence. After a school shooting, when he does a press conference, and I have so much respect for him when he did this, after another horrific school shooting, I'm trying to remember which one it was. There's been so many, sadly. And he said, I'm not answering basketball questions today. And he was very emotional. He's like, we got to do something. A bunch of 8 and 9-year-old kids were just killed today at school. We need to do something. I said, man, I really respect that. So I think there's a difference between standing up for social issues and then just being a bigot.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? Being a bigot.
Yeah.
And I think there's a distinction there. You know what I mean? I just think Ted Nugent's a bad guy. I think he's a bigot. I think Kid Rock is extremely unintelligent. He says a lot of stupid things. But do I think Kid Rock's this horrible person? I don't know. But I think Ted Nugent is, because I can only go by what these people say, David. You know what I mean? I can only go by what they say. And I'm not saying all musicians on the left are perfect either, right?
No.
Sometimes they say stupid things too.
There's extremes. There's extremes.
Right. And I don't. Right, exactly.
There's extremes.
And I don't like condone that either.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. But we're also very sensitive as a country. I want to ask you another question about entertainment. This happened to me the other day.
Okay.
I hope this person is listening, by the way. They probably aren't. I think they knew who I was. So I'm at the UNLV basketball game, right? And I'm sitting, I don't know, second or third row. I'm sitting with a bunch of my friends. And one of my friends who works for Channel 8 says to me, hey, Brian, what do you think about this RFK Jr.? Now, I didn't implode like I would on the air, but I said, nah, I don't really like him. Here's why. I don't like the womanizing. I didn't say anything. I was speaking in the normal tone of voice, which I'm speaking to you. Guy in front of me sitting with his girlfriend, muscular dude, He turns around aggressively, wasn't nice about it. And he says, dude, stop effing talking about politics. I'm here with my girlfriend to watch a basketball game. Shut the F up. So I could have handled that one of two ways. I could have said, what do you think about Donald Trump? And I could have made a joke because I guarantee you he was a Trumper. And I just gave him a dirty look and I just kept the conversation going. But I just think we're so sensitive as a country too, where you can't even go to have a private conversation with a friend of mine.
No, it used to be where you can have a lively conversation and disagree.
Yeah.
Now it's Jets and the Sharks.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so now it's either red team, blue team, Jets and the Sharks. I remember, like when Reagan was president or Bush was president. Oh, he's our president. Okay, go on about your business. Now it's so polarized, so divided, in a lot of things that it's astounding how people identify this way. Because I used to golf for 25 years. I was in a golf league. Just a side note,
we gotta play. We gotta play.
Yeah, people would be, you discuss certain topics. No problem. Let's have a beer at the end of the game.
It was always like that, right?
Let's have a beer.
Yeah.
Hey, you think this way, I think this way.
I never had a
No problem. Who you vote for, I vote.
You're so right.
That's it.
I never had a
End of
conversation
day,
before.
I don't care. It's like
before Trump, I never got into a political conversation with somebody where it really got personal.
No,
it's so different now.
Yeah.
You're so right on that.
Yeah.
You're so right.
Yeah. I mean, like,
Yeah.
that's how I
It's
feel about it. Like,
unfortunate.
your opinion is your opinion.
Right.
Doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah. I mean, it's gotten
Not you, but I'm
Right.
just saying whoever's like, there's no such thing as alternative facts.
right.
Like, facts are the facts.
Kellyanne Conway. We'll see her back. We'll see her back into the White House really
And
soon.
I'm not trying
Yeah.
to sound, but I've heard that term. Like, what does an alternative fact mean?
I don't even know what that means.
What is that?
I don't know.
So anyway,
an alternative fact would be if I said that everybody who voted for Donald Trump is extremely intelligent. I'm sorry, I digress. That's an alternative fact. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with David Perico, extremely talented musician. He's a part of many different bands, including the Raiders house band. They're going to be performing at halftime with a guy who I admire very much as well, Sammy Hagar. I actually saw him at the Stratosphere doing a show here. This guy is, how old is he now? He's got so much energy. It's unbelievable. I saw him do a show on the Strip. This was like maybe 8 or 9 months ago or something.
Yeah.
Guy signed like 1,000 autographs while he's singing "Standing on Top of the World."
He's
right?
a good guy. He's good.
He's like
Yeah.
signing all these autographs. I got some of his tequila, by the way.
Yeah. Cabo
Really,
Wabo. Yeah.
really a legend, right? A legend in the business. And speaking of which, I mean, there's so many legends you've performed with. But if you had to, boy, this is a tough question. But musically, if you had to name one of the, maybe a couple of the most influential musicians of all time, like what would you say?
Influential?
Yeah.
I would say Ludwig van Beethoven. Okay.
That's a pretty good one.
Let's start there. And then, living today, I mean, there's so many, it's vast. I mean, I'll just say people that I've worked with. I would say Chuck Mangione, Natalie Cole.
Oh, you work with Natalie Cole?
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Natalie Cole was probably the most amazing voice I've ever heard. And I've worked with Gladys Knight, Donnie Marie, list goes on. Okay.
Donnie Marie, legend.
But I mean, and they're great. Donnie Marie, phenomenal. They're phenomenal, old school. But Natalie Cole, when she took the stage and started singing, it was like unreal. Now, obviously, Sammy and these rockers and stuff that I've worked with, they're incredible. And Sammy is like, I don't know, I think he's maybe mid-70s.
He's up there. Yeah,
like
he's
that.
up there.
And he's killing it.
It's crazy. He's got more energy than a 21-year-old.
But he's a good dude.
That's cool.
Like, he's like most of the people I find that are really confident in what they've done, there's no ego, there's no air about them. Sinatra was like that. Sinatra gave you the shirt off his back.
I've met some douchebags. Anthony Kiedis from Red Hot Chili Peppers was a complete douchebag.
Really?
I've met a few musicians, and Justin Timberlake, douchebag. I don't know. I just had a bad experience with him. And you could say, well, maybe he had a bad day. But then I meet other people. Like I met Sir Elton John. It was a charity event. He could not have been more gracious.
Yeah, why not? Why wouldn't you be?
But we're talking about Elton John, right? He could not have been more gracious. He knew my question was about his charity work, and he was very, very nice. I remember I met Adam Sandler backstage at an event. He could not have been nicer. He was so cool. But then you meet some people that are not so nice. But we're all human beings. It doesn't matter whether you're a musician or not. Some people are not going to be very social and very nice, and then some people are. And I would also imagine when people want a piece of you 24/7, an autograph or a picture, I can imagine you can get a little bit of resentment, and it can, I totally understand that. I remember, I'm going to give you a quick story, and you can tell me what you think about this. I grew up a big Stone Temple Pilots fan. I was in like a Stone Temple Pilots cover band when I was a kid, right? I had a goatee down to here. Imagine that. That's when I actually had hair. And I had one of the first famous musicians, and Scott Weiland was pretty big back in the day from STP, right? He was pretty big from Stone Temple Pilots. Oh my God, he was such a jerk. I think he was drunk. I got a backstage pass. I was so looking forward to meeting him. And he was just so rude to the fans. Come on, let's get this over with, he said. All we're doing is we're taking pictures and maybe a quick, come on, let's get this over with, man. Yeah. Hey, douche, we paid to see you. At least back then I paid for concerts. It's like, and then I met Ozzy Osbourne when I was a kid, and he was awesome. Now, I had to spell out my name 3 times. What's your name? What's your name? That's true. I had to spell it out 3 times. But he was cool. Hey, what's up, man? He gave me like a, but it's like, I guess the point I'm trying to make is this, and I know I'm going on a rant here, but when you meet somebody that you look up to and they end up being a cool person, it makes it so much better, man.
Yeah.
It's so much better. I'm like, man, what a cool, I love your music, but you're such a cool person, like, I just think that will make somebody's day, and I see like, I see that happening in sports a lot, where they'll give out their sneakers and sign it to a fan. I mean, that you never forget that for the rest of your life.
No, it's very impressionable. And I mean, like, it's the hand and the card, the cards that you play, that you're dealt, and you have to own that responsibility of being in the public eye. I'm not as much as like whoever the celebrities.
Yeah.
But still, I always take time. I think it comes from your parents. I think it comes from your background. Hey, thank you. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Shake a hand. Thanks for coming to the concert. Like we've been at the Smith Center for 10 years, okay, at Myron's Cabaret.
Place,
we've been in residency there. We had 75 sold out shows. I still thank my musicians. I thank everyone for coming out. I never take anything for granted because it could be the last. All gigs end, all things end. So it's like I have this moment, and I'm always going to be appreciative of who helped me get there, why I'm here, and the people the community that is supporting that. And especially, there's 500 shows a day in this town. You can pick anything, and you pick to come to see our show.
You're so right about that.
So I'm always I never take anything for granted, and I'm always going to shake your hand. I'm never going to feel like, unless I have to get to another gig.
Well, you shook my hand. That's saying something. Yeah. Is there a song that you would refuse to play? Is there any musician you would refuse to work with, or a song that you would say, no, I'm not? Like if Donald Trump asked you, I'm sorry, I'm going back to politics again. I'm such a jerk. If he said, I want to do the Trump dance, and I want you, David, I want you to play YMCA while I do the masturbation dance, we'll call it. Like, would you be like, no? Because I guarantee you nobody's ever asked you that question. So there you go.
That's I would cross that bridge. I'd cross that bridge if that was there. I mean, look, everyone's got a price. Everyone's got a certain thing.
Right.
I don't say no until it's.
If Matt Gaetz went up to you and he said, I'm going to pay you $100,000 for the Raiders house band to come to my house, we're going to have a bunch of younger girls there. Would you do that?
Absolutely not.
Good. Okay, good.
Absolutely not.
Like I knew the answer would be no. I'm making fun of Matt Gaetz, but
Okay.
but like I don't know, but just in general, forget about politics. That was a stupid question. But in general, is there a song that you just don't like playing or you refuse to play? Forget about nothing to do with politics. I'm just because some musicians I talk to, no, I don't want to play that song.
No, because you know what? Here's the thing. I found especially being in Vegas for 20 years and then being into the late night lounge scene, people tend to gravitate to the same 20, 30 songs they know.
Mm-hmm.
The 80s anthems, Journey, Bon Jovi, AC/DC, and then you're going to get Sweet Caroline. You're going to get some Earth, Wind, and Fire. People want to hear these same things. So I would never say that there's something, gosh, I mean, hey, we're there to entertain. So, but my job is to put a different kind of spin on these things.
Yeah, of course. Does it bother you being a great musician that you are sometimes in this day and age of music, sometimes where people won't even sing live? It drives me nuts when
what do you mean by sing
when
live?
I see a musician lip syncing, for example.
Oh my God.
When I see that some of these musicians, I would never mention names, Britney Spears. I would never say that, but like getting paid $300,000 or $400,000.
Yeah.
You might be a good entertainer. You might have been taught to dance very well, but you're not a musician, in my opinion, if you're going to lip sync. I saw Rob Zombie once, who lip synced his entire show, and I'm like, this is BS, man. Come on, man.
Yeah. So what's the question?
Does it bother you when you see some of these so-called musicians that, number one, don't play instruments, and or number two, lip sync live, can't sing live?
Well, I think, yeah, it would bother any musician that spends the time developing their skill set. And just like if you can't go on the NFL gridiron and fake it,
Right.
So we're basically,
or if you do, you're going to get hurt.
So basically, no.
Right.
So look,
Yeah.
so look at the last 20, 30 years. We're in the age of fake,
Mm-hmm.
and not to sound dark, but reality TV shows are fiction.
Yeah.
There's
a lot of fake stuff out
you
there.
have fake
Just ask
meat.
Melania Trump.
You have fake meat. You have fake,
Right.
fake. Everything's kind of like fake.
Right.
These reality TV shows are,
Right.
they're fake. So you get into music where you have, and when you talk about the 90s, you have the death of the lead guitarist. Now it's replaced with tracks. I mean, this is just what it is. The zeitgeist of what entertainment is. Now you have the band is removed. Now you have tracks with just someone out front, like Backstreet Boys, Beyonce, NSYNC, et cetera, et cetera. Now that's what it is. So now all you see is just one person and a mic. Enter the revolution of the DJ.
Mm-hmm.
basically, what does a DJ do? I mean, it's like, come over to my house and listen to my stereo.
Yeah, I agree with everything. You just
Nothing
said.
against them at all. This is just where we're at.
It's
So
different. It's different than where we were in. Yeah.
So like, listening to Kiss, listening to Van Halen, these were the bands that were like Foreigner,
Yeah.
AC/DC. These were the bands
Legendary.
that were on radio as I drove to high school.
Right.
These songs were on the radio, and those were
Yeah,
you
those
knew every band's lead guitarist.
Of course.
And that was the thing. So when
Yep.
that went away, now you have, if you go into the way Frank Sinatra used to record,
Mm-hmm.
he would record live with a 40-piece orchestra. No overdubs, no cutting, no splicing.
So cool.
Cut it down. Like
Yeah.
we just lost Quincy Jones, right?
Right.
Same
Legend.
thing.
Yeah.
Same thing.
I've met him and his daughter. He's came out here for some charity work for the Lou Ruvo Brain Institute, and I met him and his beautiful daughter. Wonderful, legendary. And just to be able to meet him was so damn cool. Well, we only have about a minute here left to go. I want to promote your website as well, which is davidpericomusic.com. I went on there today, and you had some cool stuff on there, and I just learned about all the bands you're in, man. It's like
those are the bands I produce. I created Pop Strings as the Raiders House band.
All these bands, it's just crazy. And all the wonderful musicians that you've worked with, and your wife has a phenomenal voice.
Yeah,
by the
Lily's
way.
amazing.
Really phenomenal. And so if you haven't had a chance yet, you're also at Ellis Island every Friday. Are you there tonight?
Every Friday. We're off tonight because of the F1 race, but we'll
that's a
resume on
mess.
the.
Don't even get me started with that.
We resume on the 29th, but
Good.
free show. It's the only time you can come see us for free. Every Friday.
Ellis
10 p.m.
Island, Friday nights, 10 p.m.
At the front yard.
which
Yeah.
is a phenomenal place to grab a bite. And I will be seeing you, sir, in action with Sammy Hagar on stage. Obviously, you'll do the normal performances, pregame, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But halftime, Sammy Hagar, a couple songs he's going to be doing.
Yeah, we're doing I Can't Draft 55 and right now.
Oh, those are like my two favorite songs.
And also Steve Stevens from Billy Idol, the guitarist with Billy Idol. We're going to be doing
that's
some
so
Top
cool.
Gun stuff.
That's so I can't wait. David,
Yeah,
you're
man.
awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. We'll
Thank
have you
you.
on again soon. I
Thank
can't
you.
wait for the game on Sunday.
Right on.
And there you go, everybody. David Perico. Check him out at davidpericomusic.com. Also, programming note, yes, we'll be back on Monday, ladies and gentlemen. We're probably going to be taking Thanksgiving off, but we will be back on Monday, same time, same place. Thank you all for watching. Check out my website, pushingthelimits.live. I hope everybody has a peaceful weekend and a fun weekend. Stay away from Newsmax, OAN, and Fox News, and you'll be just fine. Thanks for joining us, everybody, and we will see you on Monday. Have a great weekend.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout.